This great TNG episode always makes me mad that Star Trek killed off Picard's family. Family is a great episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, but rewatching it always makes me mad that Captain Jean-Luc Picard's Patrick Stewart relatives were killed off in Star Trek Generations. Family introduced Jean-Luc's older brother, Robert Picard Jeremy Kemp, Robert's wife, Marie Samantha Egger, and Jean-Luc's nephew, Renee David Tristan Birkin. Family is a lovely Star Trek, The Next Generation episode written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by Les Landau. It was rare for Star Trek, The Next Generation to take a break from exploring new worlds to, instead, delve into Captain Picard's past and inner life. Family is also a notable instance of serialization by TNG, as Star Trek, The Next Generation Season 4, Episode 2 is a direct follow-up to the conclusion of The Best of Both Worlds, and deals with how Picard copes with his humanity being restored from his ordeal as Locutus of Borg. Tragically, Robert, Marie, and Renee Picard only appeared once, although Birkin returned to play the young Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek, The Next Generation Season 6, Episode 7, Rascals. In Star Trek Generations, Captain Picard is devastated to learn his family died in a house fire. Robert Picard, his wife, and child killed off screen was a nasty resolution to the beautiful, profound, and heartfelt reunion in Family, and it never sits right. However, Star Trek has since made it an integral part of Jean-Luc Picard's story. Star Trek, The Next Generation Season 4, Episode 2, Family, gave Jean-Luc Picard a heart and soul beyond his stature as the wise and indomitable captain of the Enterprise. Family was Jean-Luc's first time returning home to the Picard vineyard in La Barre, France, in 20 years. Counselor Deanna Troy Marina Sirtis even teased Picard that it was the first time in 3 years the captain had taken shore leave. Jean-Luc ultimately found the support he needed by mending fences with his estranged older brother, Robert. Rewatching Family, it always infuriates me that Star Trek Generations killed off Robert Picard's clan. It was Patrick Stewart himself who wanted Jean-Luc's family to die off-screen to hammer home that he would be left as the last Picard. Stewart wanted to play that profound loss to give Picard dramatic weight in Star Trek Generations, and Sir Patrick even suggested that Robert's family die in a house fire. It's a callous way to dismiss the warm and loving family Jean-Luc found when he came home to France. Ultimately, what Robert Picard and his family's death amounted to in Star Trek Generations was a couple of scenes where Captain Picard mourned them, primarily the loss of his nephew, Renee, more than his brother or sister-in-law. By the end of Star Trek Generations, Picard has seemingly reconciled and moved on from his personal tragedy, and it's never mentioned again. It's a callous way to dismiss the warm and loving family Jean-Luc found when he came home to France in TNG. Star Trek, The Next Generation Season 4 episode Family is a quiet masterpiece, and every time I watch it, I get furious all over again that Star Trek later killed off Jean-Luc Picard's family. Coming right after the trauma of The Best of Both Worlds, Family gave Picard something Star Trek rarely offered: emotional healing. It also gave us something deeper: Robert and Renee Picard, the older brother and young nephew who grounded Jean-Luc's soul. Their lives, and their vineyard in La Barre, France, reminded us that beneath the Starfleet uniform was a man who had once dreamed of something simpler. It's one of TNG's most human moments. And then Star Trek Generations cruelly burned it all down, literally. In one offhand line, the movie reveals that Robert and Renee died in a fire, mostly to justify Picard's new regret about not continuing the family line. But that emotional cheap shot feels like a betrayal. It retroactively scars Family, reducing Robert's stubborn pride and Rene's innocent joy to tragic backstory. It also robs Picard of a real, living tether to his past. Why couldn't they have lived? Why couldn't Picard have had a family he chose not to emulate, but who were always there for him when he needed to remember who he was? Instead, we're left with a haunting episode about reconciliation that's rendered even more heartbreaking by the knowledge of what's to come. Family should have been a turning point in Picard's life, not a setup for grief. Every rewatch is beautiful and infuriating. In trying to deepen Picard's future arc, Star Trek needlessly gutted one of its best emotional achievements. And I'll never stop being mad about it.